Good evening. Welcome to Love Talk. I'm Gregory Morgan, and it's my pleasure to be here and share with you. I want to talk to you about the basic assumptions of empowered leadership, the basic assumptions of empowering other people so as to accomplish what you've set out to do. Now, you can't empower people to do things that are against their values. You could pay them, you could trick them, you could manipulate them, you could force them, but we're not talking about that in a show called Love Talk. That's not what we care about. Those people are usually going to end up either in insane asylums, alone and destitute, or in prison. So we're not worried about learning how to get people to align with your intentions by using negativity or force or manipulation. I'm talking about semantical realignment, or we could just talk about aligning yourself so that each person has a sense or an authentic feeling of wholeness, completion, full self-expression, awareness, aliveness, vitality, and a sense that they're living their life true to their own values. You see, you and I may have different values. We may come from different cultures, different religions, different backgrounds, and so you may value things that I simply don't, that aren't valuable to me, and I may value things that simply aren't valuable to you. Those values are given, conditioned, received by us through the culture that we were born into. You see, there's never been a culture, and there still is not one, that has come into being with the idea of world peace, or what is best for everyone, or what is best for all people. A lion isn't interested in becoming the king of the jungle. That's something that humans talk about. A lion isn't interested in being the king of all animals. Has no interest whatsoever. A lion is only interested in its brood, its crew, its family, the ones that are gathered around him. In that kingdom, it's a patriarchal system. So he's not concerned with even another lion's kingdom. He doesn't care about that. Not concerned about that. A king or a leader of any country is normally not concerned about becoming the king of all countries. Now, I know we have in the Iranian background, the Cyrus the Greats and the many who conquered. They were interested, you see. They were interested in conquering all of the kingdoms around and becoming the king of kings. Highly unusual, never going to happen. If it did happen, it never lasts. And so my point is that historically, even though there have been people who had the megalomaniac ideal of ruling all people or being the king of all people, they weren't concerned with what is best for all people. They weren't concerned with what is right for all people or what is true for all people. They were concerned about what was best and right and true for their particular cultural group. And using that gave them permission to go out and conquer others, because human beings come with an ingrained, inborn hardwiring, if you will. We're hardwired for us and them. There's all of us. Whoever us is, whoever you're born into, whatever your tribe or culture is that you're born into, that's for you, that's us. And then there's all those not us outside there, right? Outside of some perimeter, outside of some boundary, outside of some value system or belief system, there's all of them, okay? There's them and there's us. And that's how we're born, that's how you were born, that's how I was born. We all come with that. What I want to speak to you about today is coming into wholeness and completion within yourself. The whole point of who am I, or the question of who am I, is not to discover who am I like a thing, like an it, like an identity, but who am I like a stand that I take, like an intention that I fulfill, like something that I create and cause to exist. There is a who you are, or who I am, that we're sort of born into. As I mentioned earlier, if you were a Muslim, you were born into a Muslim culture. You were You even describe yourself. If people say, who am I? One of the things that you might say is, I am a Muslim man or woman, or I am a Jewish man, or I am a Christian man or woman, or I am a Native American, or I am an African American, or I am a white guy, or whatever you identify yourself as being. I'm not talking about that. Not who am I, like a thing, like an identity. We're not interested in that. The world will give you that. You don't even have to do anything. It doesn't take any deep reflection on your part. In fact, it takes zero reflection. In fact, if you don't think about it at all, you will be identified by everyone else, and you will end up saying, I am, and whatever words follow the words I am, that's what you'll be because you said so. You are who you say you are, and to many people that's frightening to think about. There's a German philosopher named Heidegger who put forth the idea that, he said, I believe that we are who we pretend to be. It took me about 20 years to think about that, but I believe that we who are who we pretend to be, because how could you pretend to be anything if you did not already contain that within yourself? If you did not already contain all of the images and thoughts and feelings and to pretend that you were that, how could you? But that's not what I think he meant. I think he meant that who you are by default, in other words, the small self that I was speaking of earlier, the one given to you by your parents and your culture and your religion and your geographical environment, that small self, that default self that you automatically say you are without thinking, I don't think that's you at all. I think who you are that you generate being. It takes something, you see, to think about, what do I value? What do I believe in? What am I willing to fight for? What am I willing to die for? But more importantly, what am I willing to live for? What am I willing to live for? And who would I have to be to make that real? You see, self-realization has to do with discovering first who yourself is, but not the automatic self again, the created self, the generated self, the designed self, the self that you declare into being through your actions and your words, consistently, persistently, over time, in the face of no agreement, even in the face of opposition, in the face of people telling you, you can't be that, that's not you, no agreement or even disagreement, and sometimes complete suppression. Who you declare yourself into being and take a stand for. In other words, you're standing for something, and you better be standing for something, and it better be something greater than your petty little wants and needs and desires, your petty little beliefs. It better be something bigger than you. It better be something bigger than you. Otherwise, the world will beat it out of you and you will not accomplish anything. So listen, I'm going to go ahead and take this call because it's a lot more interesting to have a dialogue with you than to hear a monologue from me. Hello, this is Gregory. You are live on the air with Love Talk.
Hi, Mr. Gregory. Wish you're fine, and thank you for your good program.
Thank you so much for watching. What can I do for you?
Actually, yesterday, me and my husband, we separated, and we have a 6-year-old son.
Great. Yes?
Because my husband, we have right now financial problem. My husband says that let me stay in your apartment, in this apartment, until I find a room for myself and make more money. Do you think it's a good decision that because he's not my husband anymore, he is my son's father? Do you think it's a good decision that he stays with us for a while, or no, he has to go out and take another room?
So you have a 6-year-old son, you're divorced, and your ex-husband has come to you asking to stay at your apartment because he's financially in trouble.
He was staying with us. He's living right now with us.
He always has been? In other words, he never did move out?
No. Just yesterday I asked him that he should get another room. Yesterday we decided to be divorced.
Well, okay, but you don't just decide to be divorced. You have to go through a process, and you're not divorced until a judge stamps some papers and grants you a divorce. So are you divorced in that way, or did you just decide you wanted to be divorced?
No, no, we divorce each other by tongue, by word, because in our religion, when somebody by word say to wife that I divorce you, and wife says that I accept that, then it is divorce. Which means that now he's, for me, like a strange man.
Well, that's very strange to me. Do you were you legally married or not, or did you just say I marry you?
No, no, we are legally married, but the divorce is still, we didn't go to court. Just
Okay, I'm not talking about your belief system. I'm talking about the legal system in the country where you live. Where do you live?
in here in Bay Area.
Okay, so you live in the United States, and you have a United States marriage license. Is that correct?
No, actually, we bring our marriage license from Afghanistan.
Okay, that's very confusing to me because here, marriage is a legal state. You understand? And so, you know, you guys are relating to it like it's a verbal agreement. You know?
No, we have our marriage agreement is translated into English and it is accepted in the U.S.
Okay, great.
Here
So,
also, we are legally husband and wife. Here.
okay, so that's the point I'm trying to make. You are legally married to this man, regardless of what you said.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Got it. Took 5 minutes to find that out. All right. All right. I could understand why you guys might have a hard time communicating with each other. So, you know, all I asked you was, are you legally married or not? And okay, you are legally married. The answer to that question is yes.
Yes.
So you are not divorced in spite of the fact that you said, I divorce you. You are legally married. He has legal rights.
Legally, yes, but according to our religion, he's not my husband anymore because religiously we are divorced.
Did you notify any local religious figures to let them know that?
Yeah, to mosque, yeah.
You did? You went to the mosque and you said, we're divorcing each other, and the mosque said, okay,
Yes.
I'm recording that in the mosque records that you're now divorced.
Yes.
Okay.
And
All
my
right.
husband, because still we are new here, and he says that I have financial problem, and let me find apartment for myself. And for some months I stay here. Do you think it's a good decision that he stays
No.
with us, or
No,
has to go?
I don't. If you're divorced, you're divorced. That means you don't live with a man that you're not married to.
You think that it's not a good decision that he stays for some months, or he has to go?
No, I think that when you're married to somebody, you give 100%, even if you disagree about things a lot. You find the love in the relationship, and you do whatever it takes to have the other person, the one that you claim to love, win in their life, even if it means sacrificing some things for yourself in order to achieve the highest good for all concerned, especially when there's a child involved. When there's a child involved, the adults have a duty, an obligation to work out their personal problems so that that child has an opportunity to live in a household with a mother and father who love each other and support each other. Otherwise, you're going to create a child who has the same level of no commitment that you have.
Exactly.
And they will
Because
have,
our son,
and I
we
can
decided
guarantee
to
you they
divorce.
will have a divorce if they ever get married.
It's good for our son. Now I think
The children of divorce are 65% more likely to get a divorce than the children of married people that have stayed married all their life. So it's almost guaranteed that they will get married and have a divorce. Look it up yourself. I didn't make these rules. I didn't make these statistics up. You get a divorce, you've just taught your children that, oh, if you don't like your husband or wife, you just divorce them. You just say, I divorce you. Even if you have children and it screws them up for the rest of their life, too bad. What you feel, what you think, what you want, what you desire, what you like and don't like, that's more important. That's what you just taught them. You just taught them that them having a stable family is not that important. What you feel is more important. You see, I don't think people like that should be parents. I think people like that who just have no commitment to each other should not get married and have children. Why'd you have children with this guy if you weren't going to stay with him?
Yes, me, because before I didn't know that it's a completely a toxic relationship and abusive relationship. I didn't know. When I came to U.S., we went to counseling and marriage counseling, couple therapy. They say that's better for you, especially Dr. Azita.
Mm-hmm.
wife. She said that it's better for you to divorce. It's better, no, she recommended to me that for sure get divorced.
Oh, well, if she's the one that told you to get divorced, then that means she knows that it's a toxic relationship, and she would never recommend that, because she recommends that only when it's illegal, immoral, unethical, or dangerous to be married to this person.
And she's very smart, Dr. Azita, because whatever she says, that's right about her.
Well, it turns out to be right more often than it turns out to be wrong, is what I've discovered after being with her for 20 years. So the point is that, okay, so if I also know that being divorced means get the heck away from somebody.
Oh, you mean that he has, okay.
Yeah, certainly don't live in the same house and sleep in the same bed and eat the same food and, watch the same TV and have the same house keys and all that stuff. No, that's not cool.
Right, thank you.
Right?
And another question is that sometimes I think that why my marriage failed, and I feel a little hurt, and I feel that what should I do not to get depressed after this? How should...
Well, we could do a whole show on what you could do to reconstruct your life after you've been married with somebody and had children with them and been in what you said was an abusive relationship. I don't know how abusive it was, but
he's not physically, just putting me down and not...
So you should go do things and be with people that make you feel good about yourself, and you should do things that make you feel good about yourself. You should accomplish things that you've always wanted to accomplish so you could feel good about yourself. To a woman, self-esteem is probably one of the biggest issues. You see, men have a lot of self-esteem. We always think we're bigger, smarter, stronger, richer than we really are, right? And if we're not, we lie about it. Right? Women always think that they're not as pretty, not as smart, not as attractive than they really are.
Exactly.
Women have self-esteem issues. It just comes with being a woman. It's part of the deal. I don't know why, but they feel, I could go into why, but it's not important. Why is not important. The fact of the matter is that women have to deal with self-esteem issues. And women have to feel good in order to do good. You have to feel good about yourself, right?
Exactly.
When you feel good about yourself, nothing can stop you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So if you keep somebody around that makes you feel bad about yourself, somebody that puts you down, that thinks negatively of you.
Exactly.
You're doing the opposite of what you want to do. You want to go find some friends that think you're beautiful and smart and talented, and you want to go do things to prove that to yourself. If you need to go to the gym or get your hair done or hang out with people who, do you have certain talents things that you're good at or things that you've always wanted to do?
Just, I want to do my medical license here.
You want to get your medical license. Have you got an education in that?
Yeah.
Are you good at it?
I'm good at it, but I didn't get prepared for that because of my relationship. I just didn't. But thinking about my relationship, and now I think that I'm ready to do that.
Yeah, stop thinking about the relationship and go put 100% of your attention on that, except for what attention you and taking care of your son. Is it your 6-year-old son you said?
Yes.
Yeah. Have your son be proud of you.
He's just 6-year-old, but he likes me. Yeah, he loves me.
Oh, believe me, 6 years old is not unconscious. They go unconscious when they're around abusive relationships because it's too painful for them. So they sort of blank out. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I know.
But 6-year-old can be extremely alive and present and intuitive and very, very smart. It's just they see abusiveness and it's so painful for them that they just kind of fade out,
Because of my son, I decided to be divorced because my son, I want my son to be in a better circumstance, a better state.
Yeah, he needs to be around good, positive men that reinforce his image, that will be an example of mature masculine leadership for him. Somebody who has heart, somebody who's gentle, somebody who values women.
And he, for example, if after, as counselors say that it's better for 3 months, like separation, then if he then go to deep reflection and think, if he, after 3 months, he comes back to me and says that, let's live together. I don't know how I start again. Should I start again, like dating with him?
No, you're trying to negotiate the get back together at the same time you're trying to negotiate the divorce. This is somebody, I'm telling you, I'm speaking to somebody who has fragmented thinking. Do you understand? There are many voices within you. There is not a unified voice that knows who she is, what she's about, and what she wants out of her life. So you're listening to all these various voices. It's almost schizophrenic.
Exactly, I'm like this. What
Okay. Do you know that you just asked me should he?
Say.
Do you know that you just asked me should he live with you? Then you told me it took me 5 minutes to figure out whether you were legally divorced or you just said you were. And then you're asking me should I let him come back and stay, or should I just date him?
I don't know why there's a feeling inside myself that I don't want to accept that my marriage failed.
Okay, well, you need to take a position and stand for it. It's possible that your marriage was failed before it ever started. Many marriages are. People get married for the wrong reason, at the wrong time of their life, when neither person is qualified to be married, and it is 100% predictable that they will be divorced soon, within 6 to 8 years. At the most, mostly it's 3 to 5 years. How long were you married? You have a 6-year-old.
Yeah, 12 years from our engagement and 7 years from our wedding.
Okay. Most marriages that make it to 8 or 10 years tend to, when I say most, it's like, okay, out of a 50% divorce rate, of that 50%, 25% of them, if they stay together for 10 years or more, have a chance of staying even longer. Very few people live together until the end of their lifetime. That's more and more rare these days, right?
Right.
And so what it takes to be the kind of person that could have a relationship that lasts a lifetime means that it's a good idea to start off being prepared to do that. And I submit that you probably had never given it much thought. How old were you when you got married?
How old? I was, when I got engaged, I was 21.
Yeah.
And my wedding, I was 27.
27?
26.
That's okay. Well, that's a pretty good age for getting married, isn't it? I mean, most people are fairly mature at that time. And how old was your husband?
4 years older than me.
He's 4 years older? Okay. So that's a pretty ideal time, actually, for people to get married. Usually people have matured enough by then to be called adults. I don't want to take the time on a live program to analyze why you got married and whether or not you were qualified to be married at that time, but I can tell you that you were of a good age period.
Now I'm 32 right now.
I understand. So if you're 32, you have a 6-year-old child, the chances of you ever being married again are a little narrower than if you were just 32 without a child, right?
Yes, exactly.
And never been married before.
Yes,
Something
exactly.
that you really need to make up your mind about, and then don't question yourself after you've made up your mind. And I don't say make up your mind on the moment, like right now, but you need to really deeply consider what are your values in life, what are you going to do about it, what is it that you want for your son and yourself, in that order. Okay? Because when you become a parent, your children, their wants, needs, and desires take precedence over your own, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and rightly so. I mean, you should care about their life, and they're kind of in your hands. You have a responsibility. You start thinking about what I want before what they want, and that child is going to end up being a selfish, mean, angry child.
Yes.
And adult, right? So you want to be generous. And think about what it is that you would like for your son. If it was that you would like for your son, now, in the best of all worlds, your son would grow up in a house with his real father and his real mother loving each other, right?
Right.
That's the best possible way he could grow up.
Yes.
That's the best circumstance. And even then, he could go wrong, right?
Right.
He could get outside influences from school and everywhere else. And even when you have the very, very best circumstances for your child, don't they end up, by the time they're 14, they hate you anyhow? Every parent has experienced a child yelling at them and saying, I hate you, by the time they're 15. Right? No matter what you do. So, and then later they come back around and I'm so sorry. And then when they grow up and they have kids of their own, They love and adore you. My point is that even in the very best of circumstances, meaning a natural mother and father who love each other and who care for each other and who foster a loving environment in the home, is the best way to raise a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So if that is not available to you, if there's no way you're going to have that with his father, and you know it, and you're like after 12 years or 20 years together, however long it's been, you finally decided, you know what, I'm never going to be able to create that with this person, right?
Yeah, I just realized.
Have you given your best?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I said both of us, we are responsible 100%. Me and him, both of us.
Well, I mean, I'm not questioning it. I'm just questioning it for your sake. If you're sure that you've given your best, then move on. That's what there is to do. After the age of 40, it's almost certain that you won't get married again, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
That's the truth. A 40-year-old woman with a 15-year-old kid is not going to get married, but not very easily.
I don't know why I don't think about the remarriage again, because I don't...
Well, it's too early. It would be unnatural for you to think about that now, and I don't think that you should. I think that you should look out into the future 10 years from now and see what it is you want for your life, you and your son's life. You should look out into the future and see what it is that you would like for your own life, and you better start moving towards that.
Okay.
So when you're 42 years old, how would you like it to be? What kind of friends would you have? What kind of income would you have? What neighborhood would you live in? If everything could be exactly the way you like it to be, then look and see what kind of people are around me. How do I feel about myself? How's my physical body? What's my financial situation? When people talk about me behind my back, what do they say? Wow, do they say wonderful, nice things? Or do they, in other words, create your life? Right now, you've been living your default life. You grew up, you met a guy, you guys loved each other, you got married, you had a kid. It's not working. You feel bad enough about it to say, I divorce you.
You say 10 years far from. Why not 5 years?
Well, you can't get to 5. You can't get to 10 years unless you include 5 years. Yes, of course you should look 5 years out into the future. Yes. Don't be short-sighted at your age. Okay. If you were 20, I'd say, yeah, look 5 years out into the future. But you're 32 with a child. I'm saying look further. Look a little further. Yeah. What would you like to do in 5 years? What do you see for yourself? When you get off the phone with me, you should start writing this down, just automatic writing, just start writing. And I would write in the areas, I'll tell you the areas to write in. Physical, in other words, what kind of physical shape are you in? What do you look like, feel like? What's your physical environment like, right? What is your physical environment? What neighborhood do you live in? What kind of house do you have? What kind of car? Are you healthy? Do you weigh more or less? All that kind of stuff, right? Everything physical, what you see all around you. Just start writing it down. Because that's easy. You can start writing down physical things. But then start writing down emotionally. What is my emotional connection? Do I have a lot of friends or just a few really close friends? Am I in love with somebody? Am I married 5 years from now? Or have I stayed single because I prefer that? And don't worry, you're not writing it in concrete. You can always tear this paper up and write a new one, right? I'm just telling you, get your mind clear now. So emotionally, how am I? And then what's your spiritual life like? In other words, do you meditate? Do you pray? Do you enjoy nature? Do you have some sense of something greater than yourself that you're connected to? Do you know what I mean? So, right, you want to sort of get it together, right? And you have an opportunity to do that. And if you're putting somebody out of your life who will always be the father of your son for the rest of your life, you guys are connected for the rest of your life no matter what, through that boy, right?
Decided to respect each other because always we are parents, we are in communication,
You'll be in communication with this guy for the rest of your life. So forgiveness and respect is an excellent place to start. And very often with forgiveness and respect, you find that there's love. And if you find that there's love there, then you might find that love is worth fighting for. Not fighting each other. Fighting your own demons, fighting your own selfishness, fighting your own limitations, fighting your own inability to communicate adequately. You see, I don't think there's anything wrong with either one of you. If I was talking to him, I'd tell him the same thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with him or wrong with you.
Yeah.
I think that you probably never have been exposed to the tools and the skills. You've never had an opportunity to master the skills that are required to have a lifelong relationship filled with love, respect, forgiveness, fulfillment, intimacy,
Yeah.
and to fulfill your own dreams and desires and not be limited by the other person. That takes us you don't know how to do that. People don't know how to do it. I never knew how to do that. I'm learning still, and I teach it. We design seminars and workshops and books and CDs and DVDs and webinars and everything. My whole entire life is invested in teaching other people these skills, and yet I don't think I've learned everything there is to learn. A marriage is like, the postgraduate work of relationships, right?
Not nourishing for
There's
me,
no
yeah.
end to it. Amen. There's no end to the learning. There's always something that you have to master. But I can tell you from my own experience, it's always something you need to master in yourself. Everybody's focused on changing the other person. That's never going to happen.
Exactly,
You
yeah.
can't change another person. Only they can change themselves. We know this now, right? I mean, we should have learned it by now, but I'm telling you, you can't make another person change. They change when they're good and ready. And they change when the pain is so severe that they finally move away from that pain and they discover something that is joyous and pleasurable and fulfilling and delightful, and they move towards that, right? And a lot of people think, oh, divorce is the answer. Get away from this pain and go, find someone else that won't be painful. But then they just find out that, oh, there's other kinds of pain to deal with,
Yeah, exactly.
right? So everything that there is to conquer is always within yourself anyhow. That's the only thing that there is to overcome is within oneself. But sometimes, and so I'm going to follow my wife's recommendation, sometimes there are people who are dangerous to be around. And when I say dangerous, that doesn't mean they physically are going to hurt you, but they will hurt you so severely mentally and emotionally that it's hard to recover.
Exactly.
It's hard to move on and feel good about yourself, even though they've just said some words. The words hurt you deeply. And so it's hard to recover. Or maybe they embarrass you publicly or criticize you, in front of everyone and make you feel foolish. That kind of thing, you kind of got to get away from that.
Excuse me, I know.
I know you just asked me whether I thought he should live with you while he gets himself stabilized financially, but I do not think that is a good idea.
Yeah, I think so. I think the same.
That is not a good idea.
And another question, just 1 minute. Another question I have that because in 10 years I lacked intimacy and I'm like a hunger for intimacy, love.
Yes.
According to my age, should I, after this, think about another long-term relationship, or just I can do, for example, a short-term relationship and make fun? You think that which way for me?
Well, there's two kinds of sort of dating. Okay, there's two kinds of levels of relationship that we talk about in our workshops. Short-term recreational. Right? It's a short-term relationship and it's recreational. The purpose of a short-term recreational relationship is to have fun and to explore your own personality, your own limitations, to discover what you like and don't like, and to develop your social skills. In short-term recreational relationships that involve sexuality, that's a man's game. They always win and women lose.
But it's not good for
The
me.
reason women lose is because if you have sex with a man and you enjoy it, in other words, you have orgasms, then you're going to be attached to that guy, even if he's a bad guy, even if you know he's not the right person. If the sex is good, women, because of oxytocin spiking, okay, oxytocin's a neuropeptide that bathes your brain, and guess what it tells your brain?
Yes.
It tells your brain, he's the one. And so you start, even though he's not the one, you start texting him and calling him and driving by his house or going to the place he hangs out with or calling his friends and doing all kinds of weird things that then causes you to diminish your own self-esteem and self-respect
Then you mean that...
That's why I say the men always win, because they don't have any of those problems. They can have sex, great sex with you one night and great sex with somebody else the next night, and it doesn't even enter their mind that they've done anything bad or hurt anybody. Do you understand? And it doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them wrong. It's just how they're wired. Men are wired up to be polygamous, to enjoy sex here, to enjoy sex there. They're just wired up that way. They don't get attached in a short-term recreational relationship. They just don't get attached in the same way. Now, older men who are interested in being a gentleman, who are interested in cherishing a woman, taking care of a woman, being a gentleman with a woman, first of all, he wouldn't insist on having sex right away. He would mature enough to withhold his sexual desires until he was able to develop some kind of a relationship with you. And that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be interested in short-term recreational, but most men at a certain age kind of get tired of that and they want something else. Of course, in your culture, there's a lot of men who got married too early, who had wives and children, and now they want to go have short-term recreational relationships like a teenager. The other kind of relationship is a long-term committed relationship. That's what leads to marriage. That's what a marriage is ultimately, is a long-term committed relationship. Commitment requires self-sacrifice, doesn't it? Commitment requires denying your impulses from time to time. It requires withholding your anger or upset from time to time. In other words, it means that you put your feelings aside for the sake of the relationship and something greater, you see, for the sake of love, for the sake of stability, for the sake of longevity and commitment. You see, short-term recreational relationships, its only commitment is to have a good time. That's it. That's why I say it's a man's game. Women think they can play it, but they can't. They can't win at it unless they make themselves be like a man. I'm going to pursue this man, I'm going to have sex with him, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. Then they begin to lose their femininity. You will not gain intimacy that way. Intimacy requires being able to look deeply into someone's eyes, heart to heart, eyeballs to eyeballs, soul to soul, and allow them to see you for who you really are, and allow yourself to penetrate into their world and to be penetrated by their consciousness and awareness, and to allow that to be present. That's intimacy, and most people live their entire life and never experience it, let alone be able to create it at will, anytime, anywhere, with another person. That takes knowing who you are and being comfortable with who you are, even the parts of yourself that you're uncomfortable with, allowing those to be that way. You know, to this day, no matter how much work I've done on myself, there's parts of myself that I'm still uncomfortable about, like any person. You know, there's parts of myself that I wish I was better at, if you will. I wish I was a kinder person. I wish I was a more patient person. There's a lot of things that I wish I was better at, and sometimes I feel uncomfortable about them, and I can be fine with that. I can be intimate with another person and allow that to be there. I don't have to cover it up or hide that. It's okay. So can you know, you said you crave being intimate. You can't get that in a short-term recreational relationship. It's not available. That's not the name of the game. That's like, I always wished I could score a touchdown, but I want to play tennis. You know, it's a different game. They don't have touchdowns in tennis. Okay?
A man of character, responsibility, and resourcefulness. Become that man and join us on the journey towards manhood, finding a better person within. Embrace Growth is offering the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshop in Toronto, Yerevan, and Los Angeles. Sign up today at embracegrowth.com and see the transformation in your life. Embrace Growth has a new home online where you can easily register for workshops and events, order from the online store, and be part of the worldwide community of Embrace Growth graduates. You'll be able to see Dr. Rosita Sayan and Mr. Gregory Morgan in your favorite seminars. Visit us today at embracegrowth.com.
Welcome back to Love Talk. I'm Gregory Morgan. Thank you for joining me. What I've been talking about today is the fragmentation, if you will, that people, we start off whole. As children, we start off as whole, complete human beings, meaning our thoughts, our emotions, our physical body, our feelings, and our knowingness, if you will, of ourselves are all in the same place at the same time. They're all together in the same place at the same time. This is what we call being, whole or complete. We're not divided or fragmented. I began the show talking about the assumptions of empowered leadership. Empowered leadership. There's many forms of leadership, okay? And we have a leadership workshop that are for our advanced graduates. So there are many types of leadership. I'm going to talk about what I call empowered leadership. This is not dictatorship. This is not inspirational. This is not positive thinking. This is not dominating people through intellect or knowledge or some kind of a hierarchical system, okay? This is a different type of leadership called empowered. I'm calling it empowered leadership. And empowered leadership is based upon certain assumptions. And the most basic assumption of empowered leadership is very simple. We assume that wholeness is better than or more desirable than fragmentation. Wholeness is a more desirable state than incompletion or fragmentation. Where do fragments come from? What do I mean by fragmentation? I'll tell you. You yourself only have to look at your own personality. Many people are saying, well, we'll give you a dilemma that they have in their life. Well, on the one hand, I think this, but on the other hand, I think that. Even the caller who called me before, I'm divorced from my husband, but he wants to stay at my house. On the one hand, I think it's good because he's the father of my son, but on the other hand, not so good. What do you think, right? That's an example of two different parts that are thinking opposite things, okay? You yourself have many of these in your own life where you are examining two opposing points of view, and sometimes more than that. Where fragments come from is from what we call significant emotional events. A significant emotional event is defined by three things. First of all, the intensity of the event itself. So when I say a significant emotional event, something will come up in your mind. You've had significant emotional events where something very intense suddenly happened, and that event, changed who you are, changed who you see yourself as being, changed your view of the world. Many people say, well, this event happened and I've never been the same. That's a fact. You've never been the same since a certain particular event. Now, one is how intense was the event. The second factor that defines a significant emotional event is how soon did it peak? In other words, when there's a peak emotion, was it suddenly 100% full intensity, or did it sort of build up until it reached a breaking point? And at that breaking point, you changed. A piece of you fragmented off from the whole, broke off from the wholeness and completion that you were before, and began to adapt by assuming a different type of personality or characteristic than you had ever had before, whether positive or negative. Most of these significant emotional events are what we would call negative. I think if you live long enough, you'll end up seeing that they were actually positive because they helped you become something that you won't find out until later. But for the moment, just since we're talking about the assumptions of empowered leadership, we're always attempting to get the person back to wholeness, you see. We're leading people back to their wholeness and completion. That's the point of empowered leadership. So whatever will cause the person to reintegrate back into themselves, many times forgiveness is a pathway to coming back to wholeness with oneself or with another. A significant emotional event takes place. First, it's measured by its intensity, and secondly, how quickly did it get there? How long did it take to peak? Sometimes things happen over a few weeks or a few hours or a few years, and then finally it reaches a peak point where it's like, that's it, everything's changed now. So how fast did it peak and how intense was it are two measures of a significant emotional event. And the third measure is frequency. Sometimes people have had significant emotional events that have repeated themselves over and over and over and over and over and over. The personality fragments into parts in which, you know, one part is trying to please the person, another part is terrified of the person, another part falls in love with the person, another part is afraid, another part kind of likes it. In other words, these parts don't fit together anymore. This whole and complete child or person that started out is no longer whole and complete and has fragmented into multiple personalities, if you will. When you think of multiple personalities, you know, there's severe, intense multiple personalities like schizophrenia, where the different personalities are trying to control the show. Each one likes to think that it's in charge, that it's the one that's in charge. Sometimes the personalities don't even know about each other. That's extreme fragmentation. We're not talking about that. If you're watching this show, you're probably not schizophrenic, but you will have multiple aspects of a same personality. So, for example, you may be one person with your children and you're another person with your friends, and you're another person with your boss at work, and yet you're another person with your husband or wife. These are different aspects of a personality that still has some kind of a unification, still has some kind of a unifying anchor point, if you will, and yet it is fragmented off into various personalities. And in fact, the thought of being consistently the same yourself with all people at all times and all circumstances, that thought doesn't even come to your consciousness, because you don't even question the fact that you shift personalities constantly. You may be very easy and outgoing with one group of people, and very withdrawn and sort of humble and quiet with another group. So these are various aspects of your personality that are fragmented and seek wholeness. The assumption of empowered leadership is that wholeness is better than fragmentation. So the assumption is that fragmentation seeks wholeness. It is trying to get itself back to a whole and complete and congruent personality, one that is where all of your thoughts and feelings and emotions and your physical body and your spiritual aspect are all aligned and in the same place at the same time, in a unified manner, because that's where your personal power lies. You see, none of these fragments really has any of, or if they manage to develop some power in a certain domain, they would be powerless somewhere else. You know, you may be very powerful at work, very respected. You may be a great, I don't know, doctor or lawyer or some powerful person, right, at work. But, you know, when you're with your husband or your wife or your children, you're a wimp. Or you try to be that powerful person with them, you know, it doesn't work. That's a big danger for a lot of people, because they end up bringing who they are into an intimate relationship, and it doesn't work in that intimate relationship. So the assumption of empowered leadership is simply that all human beings are seeking wholeness and completion. In wholeness and completion, it means that you are living with integrity, means completing unfinished business from the past. There are significant emotional experiences that have happened in your past, and you are still attempting to resolve them with a technology that doesn't work. You're attempting to resolve unfinished business from the past in ways that do not work. And my evidence for that is that if it worked, it would be done already, and there would be no incompletion, period. Getting complete with the past happens like that, instant. Being complete with the past, when you know how to do it, actually gets complete in a matter of minutes, sometimes seconds. Actually, it takes no time at all. There's a moment in which you're incomplete, and then the next moment you're complete, when you know how to do that, when you know how to produce that effect reliably. So the seminars and workshops, the work we do at Embrace Growth, is exactly about that. It's about seeking wholeness and completion, which is another way of saying seeking integrity, or to be congruent with oneself. To be whole and complete with oneself is the only way to be whole and complete with other people. You think you're going to go be whole, complete with other people, but with yourself you're not okay? That's not going to happen. It can't, right? You can't go around being whole and complete with other people until you've come home to yourself, until you know who you are, until you've forgiven yourself, until you've owned, and by owning, I mean acknowledging and being responsible for all of those parts of yourself that you have been trying to hide from yourself and others, that you wish nobody would ever find out, that you are ashamed of, that you're still working on, that are ugly, all of those parts, as well as all of the gorgeous, beautiful, magnificent parts of yourself that you could see that, oh, all of that is me, and I'm good with that. I don't have a problem with that. Are there things I'm still working on? You bet. Are there things I wish were different? Yep. But do I love myself the way I am, and would I want it any other way? Yes, I love myself, and no, I wouldn't want it any other way. I like it just like it is. I embrace it, meaning I embrace myself as I am. Doesn't mean that I'm a perfect human being. In fact, in a way, I'm going to twist that for you. Actually, you are perfect. You're perfect the way you are. We live in a world in which there are things you like and things you don't like. There are things that you wish were another way and things that are exactly the way you want them. There are things that we regret and there are things that we hope for. That is how it is. To deny that is to be out of alignment, to deny that is to pretend that it should be some other way, when in fact it's perfect the way it is. You are perfect the way you are. You've got wounds, you've got weak spots, you've got strengths, you've got magnificent brilliance, you are completely stupid in other areas, you're full of embracing and accepting, and you're full of prejudice. You have beliefs that actually are not even true. You believe in stuff that's not true at all, and you don't believe in some things that are true. So all of that is who you are and who I am. And I think if you would just settle down for a minute and think about it, you would come to the conclusion that that's perfect. That's exactly the way it is. We live in a universe in which things are the way they are, and they are not the way they are not. Now that's perfect, isn't it? Yes. It's perfect. So you and I live in a perfect universe. We are perfect the way we are. And I think we should stop lying about it. We should stop trying to pretend that it should be some other way. Stop fighting for it to be some other way. And start accepting that, yeah, there's some things I don't like about myself and I want to work on them so that I can like myself better. But it doesn't prevent me from loving myself for who I am, the way I am, and accepting that. Look, if you have children and you love your children, aren't they some ways you love that they are and you like it and you want to help them be that way some more, and some other ways that you wish they weren't and you'd wish that it would change and you'd like to help them change that? But you love them, it doesn't matter, even if they're like got a terrible temper or bad habits or say terrible things or whatever, you love them anyhow, right? Why can't you give that same gift to yourself? There's ways that you are and ways that you're not. Why don't you just go ahead and love yourself the way you are, like you would love your kids? And then be responsible. You're not a kid. You're not a child anymore. Be responsible for your life. Being responsible for your life simply means you're going to take charge of it. Like I spoke with the lady earlier. You know, look 5 years out into the future. Look 10 years out into the future. Plan for it. Create it. Cause it. It's not going to turn out like you think anyhow. The you that is imagining 5 years from now is not the you that you will be 5 years from now. You'll be somebody else, and so you'll have a different vision. Okay? I projected and created my life to be a certain way. I wanted to travel around the world and teach and support people and empower people. That's about as far as I could see. I never imagined that I would have an Iranian wife and that everybody that we would be traveling around the world and teaching would speak Farsi, and that it would take us to places that I'd never even heard of before. You know, that we would have friends that loved and adored us and enemies that hate us. I never imagined that it would be like that. So it never turns out exactly like you imagine anyhow. But if I had not created this with my wife 20 years ago, if we had not said this is what we're going to do, and whatever else looks different or will take us down a different path, we simply won't go that way because that's not the direction we're heading. So we created a future, and now we're living in that future, and we see the world differently. I'm saying that you can do that too, but it requires that you embrace yourself the way you are, get to know who you are. So that's why we're having a workshop or a seminar tonight called Who Am I? So that we can begin to have that inquiry in your life. Who are you? You know, and begin, you know, I assert that when you know who you really are, you will get chills. You will be brought to tears by who you are. I think you are magnificent. I love you and respect you. Thank you for watching my show. And I'll see you back here again next week on Love Talk.
Welcome to the Embrace Growth app. There's a new way to communicate and join in. Create your free account online and sign into the app. Manage your profile on the go and choose between English or Farsi. Register for events and schedule appointments more easily than ever. Stream audio, video, and download books all over Wi-Fi or cellular. Sign up for workshops and seminars right on your phone. And access your audio and video library in the palm of your hand. Take your favorite lessons from Dr. Azita Sayan and Mr. Gregory Morgan with you. Download it today on the App Store. A man of character, responsibility, and resourcefulness. Become that man and join us on the journey towards manhood, finding a better person within. Embrace Growth is offering the Honor, Integrity, and Mastery Workshop in Toronto, Yerevan, and Los Angeles. Sign up today at embracegrowth.com and see the transformation in your life.
Welcome to the all-new embracegrowth.com. You'll have access to all the content you love at the click of a button. Videos of seminars, events, and the ability to sign up for workshops. Direct access to digital downloads right from your mobile devices. Stay in the know and see our latest graduate events. Watch your favorites anytime, anywhere. Visit us today at embracegrowth.com.
در کارگاه‌های آموزشی بانوان به رهبری دکتر آزیتا سایان با دستیابی به اهمیت و ارزش واقعی خود، قدرت زنانگی و آرامش خود را بازیابید. محیطی مناسب و هیجان انگیز برای رشد و شکوفایی عشق، ازدواج و خانواده خلق کنید. زنی شاد باشید، قلب مردان را بشناسید و آنها را درک کنید. کارگاه آموزشی بانوان، اروپا، 20 تا 22 آپریل. برای ثبت نام با تخفیف ویژه پاییزی با شماره 310 460 2600 تماس بگیرید.
A haven for the weary soul, a source of inspiration and community, redesigned to bring you meaningful experiences and unforgettable events. We are a worldwide community of vibrant individuals, displayed in the people who are a part of it, from many nations, backgrounds, and beliefs. Through powerful outreach programs, the struggles of everyday life are confronted and conquered, transforming those who participate into the best versions of themselves. One-on-one sessions are available to keep you headed in the right direction, coupled with the best resources to remind you how to live, whether at home or elsewhere. Programs designed for men, providing the building blocks of maturity, commitment, integrity, and leadership, paving the way for productive and fulfilling manhood. Beyond an understanding of masculine leadership is its application in daily life and development into something truly unique. Exclusive training for women, encouraging growth and empowerment through an acceptance of their true identities, redefining interactions, and changing the viewpoint through which life is seen. Embracing the woman within and accessing facets of your personality hidden beneath the surface. Showing our youth the value of integrity and reliability by creating an indwelling desire to succeed with honor, basing the future on a solid foundation of ideals that will guide them through life, leading by example, and showing others how to clearly convey their thoughts in a compelling way, creating a culture of mature leaders who can help others achieve self-confidence and their goals. Real people and real lives are changed for the better. With every event, more are touched and come to an understanding of their place in this world and their community. Embrace Growth is run by a passionate team and led by the diligence and inspiration of Dr. Azita Sayan and Mr. Gregory Morgan, who consistently teach life lessons based on what works, rather than the passing fads of the times.